Hello and welcome to MindShifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Thursday, July 10th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. This book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that, before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. And if you tap on it, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-on-Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials if you have any of those to share with us. We hope you will choose to do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you through email, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or your input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it just makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. And if you're available to join us live, we have plenty of flexibility with Zoom. If you just go to zoom.us, you can find a whole series of phone numbers you could call, and then just enter our meeting ID, 853-2357-4173. That's our meeting ID in Zoom. You can either open up a browser window and go to zoom.us and enter that meeting ID, or you can call one of the many numbers they offer if you have free long distance, and type in that meeting ID number, and you can listen in and talk with us directly. Again, the meeting ID code is 853-2357-4173. So, how can we support you today? What's been on your mind? Today's a Thursday, so there will be a support group tonight. And all the information you would need to join us absolutely free is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And we'll be meeting from 6:30 to 9 Central Time this evening. And we'd be happy to have you join us and or forward that information to somebody that you think might benefit from joining us. And we will probably have some discussion. We may or may not listen to a talk from Guy Finley or Dale Allen Hoffman or Michael Rice or one of the many other teachers that we use. And or someone might choose to do a worksheet process as they did on Tuesday's group or in Tuesday's group. And if you would see fit to join us, we'd be thrilled. The more the merrier, as we like to say in my family of origin. And most of the time, that would prove to be true. There were occasionally times when those of us who are introverts in the crowd would wish for less, but for the most part, the more the merrier. I am hopeful to have an interview. It was supposed to happen today, but life got in the way. But this is a book by Marcella Pixley, Pixley. And Marcella, she wrote a book, Trowbridge Road, which I interviewed her about a number of years ago, because it's just a lovely story about being in those teen or tween years and having to deal with life issues. In this case, one of the prime characters had to deal with her mother, who was severely challenged with mental health issues and obsessive compulsive and agoraphobia and germ phobia and all that stuff. And Marcella just writes very, very nicely with beautiful character development, and she lives life as an artist. She sees through that artist's eye, and she shares that in her writing. And her most recent book is called Neshama, Neshama. And I don't know how to pronounce that. I'll ask her about that when I actually do get to interview her. But it's a book that's written in prose. It's written basically one verse at a time. And when I wrote my review for it on Amazon, I just said something about how I almost can't tell you why I like this book so much, but I always enjoy authors who do great character development and who understand the dynamics of our relationships, our human life relationships. And I put Marcella in that category. And this is a story about a young girl, young woman, young girl, what, 12, 13, somewhere in there, who sees and hears and talks to and interacts with ghosts or spirits all over the place. And of course, most people don't. And so whenever she talks about that or writes about it or writes it in her journal, people get all freaked out and people bully her, etc. And this is a story of how do you live your life in a way that's meaningful to you when others can't validate or won't validate your experience, and or they want to exert pressure on you to be like everybody else. So it's a theme that she's explored before, and it's her latest book, and it's quite interesting. It's a nice quick read because of the way it's written. Neshama, Neshama.
Dr. Tim,
Yes.
you said it was written in prose. I'm sure you meant to say poetry. It is one of the most wonderful books ever. Miss Marcella, was a roommate of my daughter at Vassar, and so we've known her for a long time. And I got her book and read it and loved it just the way you did, and also lent it to my housemate here, Marwa, even though she's Iraqi, she just said, "Oh, this is the way I think." Anyway, I just wanted to reinforce your recommending it. It is just wonderful.
And that's this most recent book, The Neshama.
Yes, Neshama. Yeah, I'm glad you're interviewing her again. That'll be.
Yeah, I look for the opportunities. It's sometimes it takes a while to chase people down, but um, I greatly appreciate whenever anybody turns me on to an author like that. So you probably are the one who turned me on to the Trowbridge Road book.
I think I did. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but yeah,
And this one is just published this year, 2025.
right.
So
Yeah, she's very busy with it. She's a school teacher. She teaches, I think, seventh grade writing. Can you imagine having a teacher like that? And she's got a family, and her kids are now in and graduating from college, and they're wonderful kids. So it's heartening to see a good, rich family that's doing well in spite of the challenges to freak out and go hide somewhere.
yeah, that challenge, and that, this it's time we wake up, it's time better get going and wake up and hurry up and all of that stuff just doesn't resonate with the core of the teachings
Mm,
that people say, are so solid for them. That they have faith in the creator, they have faith in their God, they know it's all working out for the best, except when they want to get cranked up in their sense of urgency or fear or whatever, and then they can rationalize any level of tightness or tension or cranked upness that they think is needed
mm.
to either whip themselves or whip other people into shape. And I just want to sit over here on the side of calm and invite people to take another look, spin that kaleidoscopic wheel of interpretation differently until it lands on something that's at least positive or neutral, if not positive.
Yeah. Did you keep a journal of your trip by any chance?
No, no, it was. I started thinking about it in terms of the pictures too. There was a point at which my trying to get pictures to represent where I'd been was interfering with my just enjoying being there.
That is one of the things. That's why journal is so good because you settle in at night after things are done, then you can take the time to do that. Whereas stopping to take pictures is very distracting.
Well, it was one of those. Um, it was one of those series of events in my life which offered me the opportunity to dive deeper into the gratitude for the friendships I've been blessed with.
Mm,
People, if they hang around me long enough, they usually hear me say that I won the lottery in terms of parents. And
mm,
that had as much to do with the good match of chemistry between what I would need or want as a person and what my parents were willing and able to provide.
right.
They were just really, really, really good people, but also the perfect parents for me and not so perfect as parents for my siblings. The next thing I talk about most often, if we're in any kind of a discussion about how's your life and was it good or bad or whatever, the next thing I talk about is how I was just so extraordinarily gifted with who were my best friends from kindergarten on. And I have no idea. I look back, with all these years of experience doing therapy, and I still shake my head at how we, as a group of people slash friends, um, were attracted to each other. We navigated life together for so many years. In my estimation, blessed each other so thoroughly throughout the years. And I understand that that's a series of gifts most people never get.
Was this right from your early childhood in your neighborhood?
Well, it was in kindergarten,
Mm,
right? I mean, like I didn't in the houses that I grew up in, there weren't that many kids that were my age. But from school, from kindergarten on, I ended up gravitating towards and having a really good friendship with Pat and Frank and Eugene and Dan. And, as you move on up through the grade school into the high school years, then it stretches out to include Barb and Joe. And Barb and Joe were two of the people that I went and saw on this trip.
mm.
And just happen to be two of the nicest, two of the smartest, two of the most creative, two of the most dedicated to being a good person kind of people that I've ever met. And I just had the privilege of going to high school with them. And
Mm,
not just that, but we were friends in high school.
mm.
And or in Barb's case, we got to be good friends after high school. But it's this wonderful blessing that relationships and or groups can be in our lives, and it's relatively rare in my experience. Um, the support group that we do on Tuesdays has been running for over 21 years now. And the one we do on Thursdays has been running for 12. And I've been at this long enough to know that it's relatively rare to find a really good group of people like that are motivated to come together on a regular basis, that keep moving forward in their own individual work and feel an affinity for the group process as well. And I think there's a very similar dynamic going in friendships when people are blessed with these friend relationships and they've been somehow educated. Either they just born into it or they watched the demonstration from their parents, but somehow educated about the value, the depth and richness it adds to our lives to have deep, rich relationships, friendships with people.
In my neighborhood, when we were small, of course, we had a television, a black and white TV. It was just about barely invented. So we were outside a lot. And my best friends were just in the neighborhood. They were kids about my age, and we ended up playing together. And going over my journals the way I have, I realized how much we formed each other. Two of them were Roman Catholic girls with all the paraphernalia, rosaries and holy cards and little leather books with thin, sweet smelling pages and pictures of people with halos over their heads. And I became fascinated with that because of them. And one of them was Armenian, an Armenian girl whose family didn't speak English. And so we had a lot of fun. She was fluent in English because she went to school, but we didn't spend much time with her and her family because they couldn't talk to us. But she became part of our group, and I think, man, how much of an influence we might have had on her, integrating her into an American childhood. We rode our bikes everywhere. We were gone from morning till night. We climbed trees. We walked on the railroad tracks and played chicken on there and had touch football games. And played tag and hide and seek, and it was. And I think with the kids growing up now, they probably don't have as much of that because of safety issues and because of the attraction of devices. So they're inside scrolling instead of outside exploring neighborhoods and things.
Yeah, the times they are changing, as the song
Mm,
goes.
yeah.
And yet, the depth of richness that these relationships add to our lives, if we're willing to nurture them, cultivate them, etc., just can't be described in words.
Mm,
It's like the saying goodbye to good people without saying goodbye to good memories talk that I have on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. That came from a relationship with a friend. And it wasn't a theory written in a book. This was just living life and learning as you go and being thoughtful and pouring plenty of mind energy into sorting out what works and what doesn't, and being willing to engage. In this case, it was with my friend Pat in an open, honest way that most people weren't inviting us to do.
mm.
Most people today don't invite that level of honesty.
How old were you with her when you're forming that friendship? Was she a high school friend?
No, this was grad school,
Oh, okay.
and she was 9 or 10 years older than me, and she had teenage kids, and I was single and in my 20s and in my late 20s and going to grad school.
Wow.
But it's again, I'm just fumbling for words here. How to talk about how enriching it is to have people in your life that you've known over decades
Mm,
and who, when you get together, people are just relaxed and natural.
mm,
There's no pretense, there's no striving, there's just sharing of the time together.
mm,
And yeah, I suppose there might be languages for which, within which there are words for that, but I don't really know that in our language there are words for the depth and the richness that it adds to one's life to have these kinds of relationships sprinkled throughout their lives.
mm.
Every once in a while I run into somebody, I just flashed on a thought of there was an older gentleman who came to see me. He was a psychologist as well. He was in his 70s when he started seeing me, and he talked about how he and a group of 4 or 5 others were meeting, I forget whether it was once or twice a year, but they'd been doing it for decades. And it's that very um, kind of an energy vortex that gets going around people who make a commitment to maintain relationships over time.
Mm,
20 hours a week, or it's not a full-time job. Um, but it does take some effort. It does take some concerted intention to stay connected with those people and to give enough of your time, intelligence, money, and energy to the process so that everybody involved knows you're committed and they're committed, and it's a life enriching experience for everybody involved. And for me, when I'm trying to keep the focus on um, the goal, it's a wonderful reminder for me that this world is full of people who are loving, who are well-intentioned, who are intelligent, who are trying to make the world a better place, who are spreading joy, who are volunteering their time, who are, essentially just loving, um, loving individuals putting their best foot forward every day. And that there are far more of those wherever you go than there are people who are driven by the pain, fear, and sadness of their internal conflicts. Now, you could never get that opinion if you sat and watched the news,
No kidding.
right? You could never have that opinion. But if you get out and you meet people and you're meeting them one-on-one and you're, doing some level of traveling, you're doing some level of engaging people when you travel. You're not just staring at the screen on your phone when you're traveling. I tried that when I was traveling. I just noticed how often people would be moving from one position to another, like a chair in a lobby out to a shuttle, from a shuttle into a car, from a car to a shuttle bus, and people would move. But as soon as they'd land, they'd pull out a screen and start staring at the screen. They wouldn't engage in conversation with the other human being sitting right next to them. And it was fascinating how, even for me, the pattern is so strong, the habit is so there that I have to consciously resist pulling out the phone and sitting in the quiet and sitting with, my observations going. So I don't know where we're going with this other than to say I still haven't come up with words that seem to encompass how wonderful that trip was.
Well, when you get them, let us know, Dr. Tim, if you get them.
It comes up because the last person I had in my office right before this call hadn't been here since I got back, and she asked me all about the trip at the end of the session, and so it's fresh in my mind talking about wondering, will I ever find words for what seems to be almost palpable, right? It seems like I can almost taste or touch this sensation of how enriching it has been for me in my life to have the group of friends I've had and to know that they're out there in the world and like little Johnny and Janie apple seeds, planting the seeds of compassion and gratitude and joy wherever they go, or for the most part, for wherever they go, for the most part. None of us is perfect in that regard. So, does that spark any comments or questions or answers or refutations?
Not for me, but everybody else is in here too. Maybe they have something. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. Is someone unmuted for a purpose?
Must be me.
Well, only you would know if it's on purpose.
True. I'm just really relishing this conversation because as you were reflecting in all the places I've lived, in most of them I have made a friend that I've kept. And I realized as you were talking that what I was basically doing was creating my family of love. And I moved around so much that as a child, that I wasn't gifted with keeping all of the friends up until 9th grade. But I do have a friend from the 9th grade on, and I have friends for the 10th grade, and I've just collected them all through my life from wherever I've been. And it's a very sweet feeling. It feels like a hammock or a net of, I can't even say like-minded souls because they're not, but the commitment that you were speaking of was there. It's like companions along the way. Each of us in our own path and in our own location, and yet we're connected because we're on one way within our own individuality. And it's very sweet what you have been sharing. And it is hard to put into words. It's almost impossible, the depth of caring. So I wanted to share that. In fact, I'm going to look up what companion, the derivation of it, because I can't think of another word that would be as close to what I'm trying to what I feel.
Okay, let me know what you find.
Yes, well, it's right here. It comes from Middle English. Bread, food, to be with bread and food. That's what companion means. Partaking at the table of each other's presence, maybe. So, being fed and feeding. And thank you
You're
that
welcome.
I could share this comment with all of us. And by the way, I feel that way about the support group and our radio show. All of the participants, whether they pass through and don't come back, I just feel it has been a companionship and continues to be with all of those who feel committed to stay. And it's perfectly fine if they decide that is not the companionship they want or have other priorities at the moment. It's all good.
All right. Well, before I get back into reading the question and answer section from this book, A Walk in the Physical, I'd like to remind people to make notes of your questions that you might have for Christian, because in about a month, he should be here.
Oh, that's so good.
That's August 8th.
That is so good. That is so good.
So that means you put everything down right now and you're just making a list of your questions? That's
Yes,
why
sir. Yes, sir. I have a comment also related to this talk so far. First is the books you referred to, Trowbridge
Road.
And the other one, when you were talking about the 12-year-old stage, I really felt a lot of energy around that period of my life where I believed I was pretty much on my own to figure everything out. And it was a lot. It was a dangerous, difficult time for me. So I probably have more work around that, but that's a side note, and I can do that tonight. I also related to having the gift of amazing people along the journey. Just really resonated with how it feels to have the best friends. And my mother was a good friend and still is at her age. And so she taught me how to be a friend, and she taught me how to live that commitment regardless of what shows up in the physical. And so I've been so blessed with these relationships that teach me all the good that's going on in the world, as you shared, when I don't focus on news, but do focus on what's right in front of me daily. And the other thing I wanted to share, that in being a part of the somatic experiencing community for the last almost 20 years, I have been in a community of people. When there is a natural disaster, we show up. And I'm waiting for whatever I am needed for in this Kerrville situation, because I grew up playing in the Guadalupe River. I grew up with ranch family. I grew up with Texas in my bones. And so it is latest flooding, Earth Mama disaster, we call it, has been beautiful to witness and horrifying to witness. And I've heard from friends and family from Texas how much on the ground heroism is happening, including this morning. I was hearing about people feeding people, whatever it takes to be there for others is happening on the ground in Texas right now. And I'm just really, really grateful that I know this in my bones, and every cell in my body, that there's so much goodness in people. And I guess I just needed to talk for a minute. I'm grateful for this time together.
Well, and I'm, grateful that you're willing to share. I have, I think I mentioned it before when the flooding hit, that my family went down to Texas and did a long canoe trip on the Guadalupe River when I was a teen. And it was the trip in which, or on which, my parents discovered that their teenage sons knew swear words. And they discovered how little their sons knew about physics and how well sound carries across water. The point of the story is that when I saw the morning after this flooding, I saw some of these scenes. It looked like places we had camped on the
For sure.
Guadalupe. And,
Mm.
to have the thought that there could be 30 feet of water where there was nothing, half an hour before, it's just mind-boggling.
Yep.
But as you say, when you are aware of what's happening at that grassroots level, what you're going to find is people showing up to help people left, right, and center. And a lot more of that than any of the opportunists who go in trying to take advantage of a situation and turn a profit or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. Well, I saw on the night before on the radar, I saw the rain red areas on the national weather map, which I check in as a sailor more often than most people do. And I saw those red areas, and I immediately thought of the camp, because I've been there many, many, many times. And I immediately thought, I hope the camp is ready. And then I went to bed. But I so relate to the survivor guilt for anybody that didn't I don't even know the phone number of the camp, but there was a part of me that felt like you should have called the camp. You should have. You immediately knew the camp was downstream. You immediately knew the camp was vulnerable. Why didn't you call the camp?
Okay, so now you have emotion coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is literally mapping out the first part of the worksheet process where if you tune into it, you can become aware of what you're doing with your thoughts to create the negative emotions you're experiencing right now.
Excellent idea. I will do the worksheet as soon as I'm done with this wonderful time together. Thank you.
Well, and one of the helps in framing it out is you were just saying this thought is I should have called the camp. And so that would be one of the thoughts you would use in a worksheet process to try and unravel how is it that you're creating negative emotions right now. As you
Yes.
think about the camp, as tears come up, as you choke back the tears. So the first few steps, the first 3 steps of the worksheet process help me clarify what I'm doing with my thought process that is actually creating my pain, and then put it all aside and cancel everything that my mind is telling me needs to happen and open myself to an inspiration, an intuition, an insight that is not going to be there in that conscious logical mind spinning with thoughts about what is wrong with me? Why didn't I call the camp? I should have called the camp. I knew this. I had an instinct. I didn't follow it. It's all my fault, whatever. That churning of the negative thoughts in the mind won't ever slow down on its own. The way Guy Finley talks about it, he says, look, that mechanical level of mind always, only and forever just churns and does what it does, what it's been programmed to do. And it will never stop doing that until the moment it wakes up and realizes that it is the source of its pain, not the solution to its pain.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. It's starting to rain on me, so I'm going to walk over to shelter. And thank you so much. I'll be in a more secure place in about 3 minutes.
All right. Well, blessings. I'm grateful for the call and your willingness to at least frame out or let us talk about what it would look like to frame out a worksheet like that, because this is essentially, the fundamental, if there's one reason we do the worksheets and the support group, it's because these worksheets help transform people's lives for the better. And so every example, every time someone is willing to share an experience or share an example of identifying the thoughts I'm using to create my negative emotional states, identify the goal that's contained in that thought that's not getting met, and taking the unusual step of being willing to question what I believe and what I think, and open myself to the fact that at best, what I think and what I believe I know is at best only partially true, and perhaps even completely false. And when I'm willing to do that, I open myself to universe after universe of possibility. Whereas if I just listen to what my mind is telling me, especially if there's any kind of physical or emotional tension or negativity going, if I only listen to what my mind is telling me, I'm just going to get further and further stuck. I'm just going to keep churning at the thoughts that are causing my pain, hoping that if I think them long enough and churn at them long enough, the pain will go away. It doesn't go away. If I'm willing to put it all aside and cancel it, cancel my need to be right, cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, and practice putting myself in that open, allowing space, I create the possibility for things to expand exponentially. So most of us, when we do a worksheet like that and we cancel the goal, the thought we have is that I should have called, and the goal would be, something like what I think has to happen here is I have to always trust and act on my intuition or my gut hunches or my interior nudges. And then if I get to the part where I cancel that thought and that goal and ask to be shown the hidden part of my mind, now I've set up these vibratory frequencies with keywords and the meanings I hold for them. Keywords like should have and intuition and speaking up or speaking my truth or getting it right or hurting somebody by not, showing up the way I should have. And all of those energies that might be resonating in me, all of the meanings behind those words that might be resonating in me will be the fruit that I get from the worksheet process if I'm willing to just keep stirring that pot and seeing what bubbles up, what floats to the surface. And it's going to be stuff that I downloaded when I was younger, trying my best to be the best kind of person I knew how to be. And during that process, it was the best thought or conclusion that I could come up with. It just happens to be false. And my ability or willingness to question it is the prerequisite for healing and moving forward. Because as we talk about so often in this work, this experience of free will that's been given to us isn't ever going to get taken away. All the deep teachings say the same thing, that you do have the ability to choose, and you could choose, I don't want to be a friend to Yeshua. I don't want to ask to be shown anything. I don't want to give up my anger. You can choose that. And for as long as you choose it, that will remain your life experience. So it's the basis of what allows us to get benefit from a worksheet process is that we've opened ourselves to being willing to question what we think we know. We've opened ourselves to be willing to be shown something new. In other words, as Guy Finley says, I'm willing to make myself subordinate to someone or something outside of myself because that's the only way I can learn. And if we understand that everything is eventually going to make sense, if I saw all the pieces of the puzzle, it would make sense, then I recognize, okay, whatever my mind is telling me, when there's anger or fear or sadness or hurt present in my mind, whatever else is going on that might be true, what my mind is telling me in that moment is not the truth. What it's telling me about why I'm angry or hurt or sad or scared is not the truth. This is an inside job, and if I've learned over time that I don't make very good decisions when I'm angry or hurt or sad or scared, then my top priority, once I recognize one of those emotions is active in me, is to dissipate that emotion, to create the space in which that part of my mind doesn't feel compelled to keep creating it. So that's what we're here to support people in doing soon and often. If I'm willing to open myself to the understanding that my actual experience of life is a self-induced process, then I can move closer and closer to that 100% responsibility for every emotional state that I'm experiencing because I recognize, hey, I'm the one creating this. I'm here on this trip out west or wherever I am, and I'm going to complain about somebody left pulp in the orange juice when I clearly asked for no orange juice pulp. And I can throw a tantrum. what did I say? I was talking yesterday about, I've seen people that throw a tantrum for, 13 coffee grounds that get spilled. Grown adults that, if they were 5-year-olds, they'd be throwing themselves on the ground and pounding and screaming and kicking. And not, thankfully for most of us, most adult tantrums don't look like that, but it's still an adult tantrum. When I get angry, when I get irritated or frustrated, when I get really sad and down, that's a creation of my own thought process. And if I'm willing to be awake in the moment, this is what my guy Finley says, come awake, okay? Take a breath. You're going to need, your brain needs the food. It needs the oxygen. Stay awake, be fully present, come alert. He peppers his talks with those reminders almost all the time. What's that about? Why do we as human beings need to be reminded to wake up? Because we've got such a strong, often unquestioned internal dialogue running that we're not really paying attention to the flow of life around us. I had a couple of these examples just in the past day where a couple of days where I ended up getting into my car and realizing, at home, and realizing that significant things that I wanted to take to the office for the day had been left in the house. And every time that happens, I just kind of chuckle these days. It used to be I would get angry and have swear words coming out and frustration. Now I just chuckle and I say, wow, I didn't realize how unconscious I was as I went through the routine of getting my stuff ready to go to the office that morning. And yet I clearly had to be pretty unconscious because here's 3 things sitting on the table that when I go back in, they're lined up ready for me to take them to work. And something distracted me as I was milling around getting stuff ready to go out to the car. And I went out to the car without these things. And I kind of chuckle and said, well, it's a good thing I remembered. I don't know what it was that caused me to question it or remember it. But this is why we live our lives and so much on autopilot. This is why it's a really good thing to be reminded to wake up. Come fully alive and awake and aware, be in the moment, be aware of your breath, be aware of your awareness, be aware of your true nature. To live your life in the moment more actively, consciously, that's an invitation in this work. And if you're going to do that, then I like to pull out the line from Abraham Hicks where they say, your most important creation in every moment is your emotion in that moment. And to follow that up with the realization that most people try to achieve, try to accomplish something or acquire something because of the emotion they hope they're going to have once they get it. And the teaching from Abraham says, find a way to give yourself that emotion, find a way to create that satisfaction or joy or happiness or aliveness or stimulation, create it inside yourself. And then if you want to go and acquire something or achieve something, go on out and do it. But now, once you acquire or achieve something, you're not going to have to worry that if you lose it, the good emotion is going to go away because you proved to yourself already that you can create that emotion at will. You can choose for love in any given moment. You could be like so many people who are in what Christian Sundberg would call extraordinarily challenging constraint sets, right? You might be walking around in a physical body that's full of aches and pains or that's not functioning optimally. You might have a series of family and friends who are all going through serious life events that are challenging them financially and in terms of their energy levels and in terms of their resources. And you might have several people reaching out to you when you're already feeling overtaxed with what life is demanding of you. But yet in that moment, you still have the option to choose for love. You don't have to choose to pour your mind energy into thoughts that will create overwhelm or high stress level or sadness or anger. You don't have to continue to pour your mind energy into those thoughts once you've learned how the system works. And so, again, I just want to remind people that we're very grateful that you're here, and we'll look forward to connecting with whoever wants to come to the group tonight, 6:30 to 9 Central Time. All the information you would need to join us is on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And I will again recommend the book Neshama, Neshama, by Marcella Pixley. And hopefully by this time next week, I will have done an interview with her and have a scheduled date for its being published. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions and comments. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are